Shalom, shalom. Greetings to you all in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, wherever you are. What a great opportunity the Lord has granted us today. It's a blessing, brothers and sisters, to have our Father and God walking with us, making Himself known to us. Because initially, it is impossible for a man to know God. You know, only God can know God. Only God can know God. And so, if we are to know God for who He is, God understood that He had to come and become one with us and give us His nature. And the moment He gives us His nature, He brings us in the class of gods. And when we are brought in the class of gods, we can understand Him now. You see, one of the reasons why man is brought in the class of God is so that he may understand God. Because humanity cannot understand divinity. And that's how it works. We have to understand it. All this is because of love. All we are to explain and teach love is beyond words, and it's beyond what we can explain, brothers and sisters. One thing we have to be sure of is that grace, the grace of God, is too much. It's too much. And that is what we are seeing here in the book of Second Peter. It's an epistle, Second Peter chapter 2, chapter 1, verse 2. Chapter 1, verse 2. It says, "Grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord." Now wait. It says, "Grace and peace be multiplied." I talked about multiplication system, and I was trying to give an example of whatever you have in your life. Imagine it multiplied, maybe 30-fold or 60-fold or 100-fold. Multiplication is the way of God. This is how God operates with people. And when you discover these things and you realize that you are prospering on this speed or in this system, whether you want it or not, people will begin to talk about you, and they will question a lot about you because they are not used to the multiplication system. They expect you to get this after 10 years, you get something else after, you understand that. But if you flow into multiplication, to them you are stealing somewhere. Because in our understanding of the blessings of God and the favor of God, we bring it to our level, and we understand it with the fallen mind, with a mind that is not renewed. And so we make some wrong conclusions about how God prospers us even the speed. But he's talking about multiplication. Understand that the system of multiplication is way beyond the system of addition. We have to understand that this is how God operates. And your question will be, or we should ask ourselves, why is it that this is not common? You find it in some few people's lives. The people who experience these are few. Yes, because in our minds we don't believe it. We don't even know that this is how God operates. But the reason why I'm bringing this, I'm presenting it to you, I'm showing you that it is His will. Well, it is His will. You can open your heart for this, or to see it manifested in your life, or you reject it. Then you stick with your old way of doing things or experiencing whatever you experience. But he's saying grace and peace be multiplied to you. You see, this is why I said when you meditate on the word, you always get more. If you don't just rush or jump or go, you're trying to go somewhere, you stick to that and meditate and allow it to soak. You get a lot in one verse and you'll be blessed. And guess what? You should not believe what everybody's believing. You believe in His word. Is what He's saying. I choose to believe in multiplication, that everything concerning me shall multiply. And it is supposed to multiply over and over again. It doesn't say that it only multiplies once and that's all. No, it multiplies continually. Imagine the life of multiplication. I'm telling you, it's very scary. Very scary. How do you explain that kind of multiplication? How do you present this, in even conceiving the idea in your head, in your mind, in your heart? It's unfathomable. So, but now, let me bring your attention to what he precisely talk about in this verse that is supposed to multiply. He says, grace and peace be multiplied. So what we are seeing here multiplying is grace and peace. Then this is marvelous. You see, the grace of God, in whatever form or amount, it will be sufficient in your life. Even if it's a drop of grace, right? The drop of grace in your life will make tremendous changes, will cause unusual experiences, will lift you high above all things. The drop of grace. A drop of grace, remember we're talking about a divine virtue. And this grace, I'm saying whatever amount of grace that is operational in your life, it will blow anybody's mind. Can you imagine that even the drop of grace is enough? But then here he says, grace and peace be multiplied. Think about it. If a drop itself is enough to bring about the change in one man's life and in a person's life, imagine now the multiplication of that grace. You see, God is extravagant. He's extravagant God. I again can tell you that the reason why man does not understand such things is also connected to the fall of man. You see, when people found themselves in Adam, they were conditioned to think in a certain way. And that conditioning to think in a certain way has brought about the results, the lifestyle they live today. If you live slightly above them, you will be attacked or they will question you, because in their minds, nobody is supposed to go beyond a certain dimension or level. But that is the fall of man. That is not the liberty of the Spirit or the expression of God's gratitude towards us. I remind you that we are His sons. What do you think God will give His sons? All that belongs to Him will belong to the children. So when we hear about the multiplication of grace, I'm telling you, the drop of grace itself is enough. Now imagine multiplying the other drop. And it is now beyond, it's like a sea of waters. You know, when you look at the sea, you realize it's too huge and big, and we know that the waters are even more than the dry ground. So imagine this grace being multiplied. Oh my God. And the meaning of the word grace, this carries. Well, people think that is only divine enablement, whereby you can do what you couldn't do before. Well, that's also included in grace. But grace goes beyond that. You see, grace has to do with this divine exchange, whereby God takes on the human form. Imagine to put on the human form, because you cannot explain grace without beginning with God. It's not you having some promotions at work, having this or that. That's not. You don't begin by explaining grace using those examples. Primarily, grace begins by God, Him choosing to become man, to assume our human form, our humanity. For which purpose? So that He may lift us into that divine order or divine class. Normally, that is what grace means. Well, if you say that it means the unmerited favor, I understand what you mean. Of course, if that is your definition, it is lesser, but is found or is included in that one which I've just explained. If you say that it's something that you didn't deserve, well, you might say it, but that is very limiting. The truth is, He makes you, He turns you into His own Son. And He ensures that what is in Him is now in you. Because the word Son, it means another one in whom the Father dwells. So, if He talks about grace, we begin from there. So the rest which we have seen, the promotions, this happening in your life, it's just the results. So some of the small, effect of that grace. You see, grace is what Christ has done with us. Grace is that move of God that Paul will call that great is the mystery of God. Great is the mystery of God. You see, that is where it begins from. Understanding that God Himself is putting on the human form. And that itself is inconceivable. That self is huge. So now He says that grace and peace, I'm not talking about peace, I'll talk about it later, but grace be multiplied. Let's talk about grace be multiplied. He says, imagine, He's already done what you could not imagine or believe. Him becoming one with you. And then He says, let it be multiplied. Oh my God. You see, this is what I'm saying. It's just amazing. This is the gospel. This is good news. It has to be too much. Shalom, shalom.